All right, and we're coming up on the half hour here. So, in the interest of time, I think we are going to get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's webinar on the AutoCAD Sheet Set Manager. My name is Patrick Rennie, and joining me for today's webinar is my colleague Colin Gaudette, who will be running us through the actual AutoCAD portion of today's webinar. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. I am going to be monitoring the chat as well as the Q&A. If you do have any questions throughout the webinar, we are carving some time out near the very end of this hour to go over any questions that you might have about today's presentation. So if you do have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat and they will get answered in today's session. Awesome. As mentioned, my name is Patrick Rennie. I'm an account manager here at SolidCAD based in Alberta. And with me again is Colin Gaudette. He's a technical consultant here based in Ontario. In terms of an agenda for today's webinar, we're going to start with a quick introduction to SolidCAD. And then Colin is going to take over and jump into sheet set managers. In particular, we're going to start with the question, what are sheet sets? Then we're going to move into file organization and printing, data sharing in fields, and then finally details and callouts. And I should mention again, at the very end of today's agenda, we are going to leave some time for questions. So just about SolidCAD and who we are. We've been in the computer-assisted design and drafting space since 1996. And through more recently, we have been acquired by the Cancel group of companies and rebranded as SolidCAD, a Cancel company. We work with Cancel quite closely to provide field-to-finish solutions for your organization, whether that's gathering data into the field and then ultimately having a final output or deliverable to your customer or client. What do we do? At SolidCAD, we help our clients implement technology and ultimately optimize their workflows. We do this by creating design creation and data accuracy, helping enforce industry standards and provide that guidance, and then through the sharing and collaboration of that data and information to your peers, colleagues, or clients. Now, Colin and myself, we are part of the infrastructure team here at SolidCAD, but that is certainly not a limitation to SolidCAD. These six industry verticals are the main groups that we service. So architecture, engineering, construction, infrastructure, manufacturing, and plant industries are our main focuses. Within civil infrastructure, we do have a few services that we offer. So, of course, we do provide Autodesk solutions like what we're going to jump in today with AutoCAD. However, we do offer training programs, consultations, custom programming and implementation of that programming, any sort of data management challenges that you might be having, as well as general support, integrations, and then events such as this webinar. In terms of training facilities, we are operating coast to coast in Canada. So there is likely a facility in your province, all the way from out in Burnaby, BC, all the way to Halifax, Nova Scotia. We do have some facilities. Also, I should mention, we are starting to do some more in-person engagements now that things have started to open up in Canada. So looking forward to seeing some of your faces physically soon in some of these training engagements. With SolidCAD's training, we do offer two varieties. We have a custom training offering, which is a curriculum specifically tailored to your organization's goals. And we can be we can cherry pick exactly what you're looking for in order to provide the most effective solution for your organization. And then alternatively, we also have open enrollment training, which is general, all students, sessions with predetermined dates and predetermined topics for you to cover. So concepts like introduction to AutoCAD, introduction to Civil 3D, Civil 3D for surveyors, these are the types of courses that we offer. And finally, we do offer remote solutions. I'm sure as all of you have been familiar with this concept over the past couple of years, we are still doing remote engagements, whether it's training, mentoring, consulting, or implementations. We are providing that service either both in person or virtually at this time. Lastly, I just wanted to mention our Solid Assist team. This is a technical support line that is available in Canada. You are able to call this line if you ever run into any challenges with software that you are utilizing through SolidCAD. So this is a service that is available for free with any SolidCAD customer, and we're happy to assist where we can. And now, with that all being said, I'm going to pass it on over to Colin, who's going to get into the meat and potatoes of today's webinar. Colin, take it away.
Thank you kindly, Pat. I'm going to steal this screen from you, and it should be the exact same. Can you see mine?
Yes, sir, you're good.
Awesome. So jumping into this, we've kind of broken this sheet set manager topic up into 3 different components of what sheet set manager kind of helps do. Firstly, being the file organization and getting to print a full project. Then getting into your data sharing and your fields and kind of getting into a little bit more of the niche workflows with that, or some complexities with that rather, and then the ever daunting task of details and callouts. But to kick things off, how many of you have ever reached the kind of the max file path limit when you're trying to save out files in a project folder that ends up being folders upon folders upon folders of superseded, and I need to group these ones here so they're in a deeper folder as well. It becomes really daunting to get in and navigate to the correct files that we're looking for, the correct DWGs that we're looking for that have those layouts that we want to plot and everything like that. So that's what Sheet Set Manager effectively helps do when you're talking about printing in your file organization, is it gets to be almost the quarterback of your project when it comes to consolidating all of the sheets and all of the different DWGs that you're working within. So we'll take a look at the anatomy of sheet sets, managing the sheets, and then publishing in ETransmit. So this publishing that we've got here is very similar to the typical AutoCAD publishing. It's publishing the entire project instead of just, well, we'll get into it. Looking at the anatomy of the sheet sets. So Sheet Set Manager is just another palette inside of Civil 3D or AutoCAD. And that's something that I wanted to mention right off the hop is, although this is an AutoCAD webinar, this becomes even more and more potent as we start to use this Sheet Set Manager as we're getting into Civil 3D design as well, where we need to separate out our design drawings for productivity and efficiency and performance. The Sheet Set Manager panel or palette acts as sort of a database for that project. It consolidates all of the different sheets that we want to plot into our PDF package that ends up being either just a PDF package or your 2x3 kind of sheet stack of paper that you're going to deliver to your clients at the end of the day. It consolidates all of that. It allows us to organize all of our sheets into different subsets and in order correctly, and then we can get into publishing and transmitting. Let's take a look at kind of managing the sheets themselves. So we'll also talk about how to import sheets or create sheets themselves, naming and numbering them and titling them, and then accessing those support files that they are all a part of. And then lastly, the publishing. We've got lots of different publishing capabilities here to DWF, to plotters, all sorts of whatever you need. And then as well, we also have the ETransmit function. And if you don't know what the ETransmit function does, this is a really handy tool. Anytime that someone's ever asked you for a drawing or you've ever asked someone for a drawing, how many times has it not come in with the correct images attached, or they've emailed it to you and just the DWG? So you're missing XREFs, you're missing images, you're missing PDFs that need to be a part of it and stuff like that. It's because they only sent you the DWG as opposed to e-transmitting that file. When we e-transmit the file, it collects every piece of integrated files into, or every connected file into that DWG, and it bundles it all into a zip folder, and then you share the zip folder. That's a really basic look at ETransmit. It gets even crazier and even more powerful when you start to talk about that on a project level with Sheet Set Manager. We can ETransmit the entire project. Grab every XREF that was connected to any sheet or any drawing that's required to create any sheet, pulls it all together into a zip folder, and then you can send that entire project. Or one of my other favorite things that you can do with it is you can also use ETransmit to kind of encapsulate that moment in time of what the project looked like at that point, because it makes a zipped copy of everything that had to do with producing that project. I apologize if my voice gives out. I'm a little bit under the weather today. But I'll jump over into AutoCAD here. All of those things that I just talked about, let's actually play with those inside of AutoCAD live now instead of just death by PowerPoint. How do we get into Sheet Set Manager? That's probably a good place to start. Well, under View, Sheet Set Manager. Or, for those of you who like the keyboard shortcuts, SSM, or Sheet Set, whatever the case. It's going to open up this palette right here. And this is our sheet sets palette. We've got 3 different tabs on the side, all of which we'll talk about. We've got the sheets list, the model view, and the sheets view. Well, let's start with the sheets list, or let's start with creating a new sheet. I have a couple layouts in this drawing, and I'd like those to be part of this sheet list. Or maybe I'll rewind one more time here. I've also got a completed sheet set file. Now these files, they're a DST file. Now I'll open this one up. This is the end result. This is the reason we use the Sheet Set Manager. To be able to see all of the different sheets that are going to be included in our design, to be able to pan back and forth and jump between them. So I can click on the cover sheet, for example, and that file wasn't open. It's going to open it for me. Once we have all of those sheets in here and everything that we need for the project, the Sheet Set Manager really quickly becomes the quarterback for our project, especially in the later stages. In the later stages, it's going to save us a ton of time. Being able to open this up or our existing conditions really quick on the fly. Now, how do we get these sheets in here? That's kind of what I started to get into. Let's go back to drawing 1 here. And in fact, I'm going to flip back to my start here, my brand new sheet set. I can right click and I can grab a new sheet, or I can import a layout as a sheet. Or maybe this right here is my existing plan. Well, I could take that and I can simply just drag it in. There we go. Definitely save. And I can just save this as drawing 1 and then drag this in. There we go. It recognizes the drawing name it's coming from, the layout name, and the status is important as well. That's something to note is one layout cannot be in more than one sheet set. So if I've got this layout, this existing plan layout in this sheet set, once I click OK and import that in, I can't flip back to my complete one and drag that in here. It's going to show me and bring it up, but it's going to say this is already in use. It's already part of another sheet set. So that's where you get this import checked. This isn't checked. What else did we talk about here? Talking about the actual sheets themselves. We can name and number each one of these sheets. Now, by default, if I come over to my existing conditions plan, I've got plan 1, plan 2, plan 3. Now, by default, those come in that way. I don't have to have it show up that way as the layout. Now, if I had my layouts titled nicely, it can absolutely do it. Otherwise, I'll come over here and I want to rename and renumber all my sheets. I can have sheet A, B, C. These are you've got your layout name and your sheet name. Maybe this wasn't ABC. This needs to be 1, or better yet, following the numerics here, it's actually 02. Now, when I go next, it automatically opens up the next sheet. 03, next, 04, 05. So you can very quickly renumber all these sheets. Not only that, they don't even have to be open for you to renumber them all. So it's a very effective way within the sheet set manager to control the numbers of the sheets, the names of the layouts, and everything like that, all in here. Back to, perfect, okay. And then once we've completed all of this, once we've updated the names and everything like that, close this, I'll save it. And I'm intentionally closing these to show you that the best part about this sheet set manager is the fact that we can come up here and we can publish all of these without these drawings even being open. That's a really nice feature because as we get later into our designs, there's a lot more design information, especially in Civil 3D, but even in AutoCAD as well, our drawings are getting larger and larger. So we don't even need to open those in order to publish and send them to a PDF. Now, on the back side of this, what we're going to get into is looking at why I have these page setup overrides. I find this gives me a little bit more control. And we'll talk about how to set those up as well. And then we've also got the ETransmit, so I can bundle all of these again into that zip folder, send off that zip folder or archive that zip folder so that I've got that instance, that stamp in time of what the project looked like. Coming up in the sheet set manager, we've got the actual sheet set itself, and then we've got a whole bunch of different subsets. Now these are really just here for organization. It's a lot nicer to look through the list and see these are all my site utility plans, as opposed to having everything in the same list all together, although that's also an option. I can come up to my sheet set manager or my sheet set name, and when I right click on it, this is actually where those, if I go to publish and go to my overrides, my 24 by 36 PDF, where does that come from? That actually comes from the properties of my sheet set. So inside my sheet set, I've got a whole bunch of stuff, and I find if you've used sheet sets at only a little bit, you've kind of glanced over this first portion and you've gotten right down because you know what some of these, the project name and the fields do, and that's some of the nice stuff. But I've got this page setup override file. If I hover over that, that's pulling page setups from a template that I've picked. In fact, it's pulling it from the template that I've got open here. Page setup. And that's where it's pulling these ones in from. So they're pre-configured setups for my layouts so that I can apply the same plotting standard, plotting options to every single sheet, as opposed to just leaving it to whatever that sheet was on at that time. Now, let's jump back into the PowerPoint, because the next thing that I want to talk about is some of the data sharing in fields. Now, this is getting into a little bit more of the power of our sheet set manager. We're going to look at some of the preset properties as well as the custom properties using fields and some of how to set those up inside of a use case of a title block using automated attributes. So inside of this, we talked about this, the manager is a database. It consolidates all of the information that you need for a project to go and plot it out or whatever the case. Now, on top of that, it contains all of our project information. So the project number, the project name, and all of that. This project control, this project information, is then added to, for example, the name right here. Or the project number is coming from here down to here. This is using fields embedded inside of our title blocks. And then on top of that, we can start to create custom fields because we're never going to have exactly what we're looking for. Now, when we're talking about, let's kind of rewind here for a minute. For those of you who maybe haven't used fields all that much, fields are not a sheet set specific thing. Sheet sets are only one thing that fields can be used for. Let's pop back into AutoCAD. I'm going to do that a couple times today. And I'll just draw something really quick here. Just draw a shape and close it. Draw some M text. Height so we can see it. Okay. So there's lots of different things fields can be used for. One really easy example is maybe the area. So I can come in here and I can, anytime you're in M text, anytime you're in an attribute even, you can right click and you've got this option to insert fields. This is a dynamic connection to something. Now, when we select that, it opens up the dialog box where we get to pick that something. There's field categories for date and time, documents, or even objects. So really simple one here is we can pick a specific object. We can actually pick that from the drawing. And we can get things like the color, the elevation, or the area shown in the right decimals and everything like that. Now what's cool about this is a dynamic connection. So anytime this changes, all we have to do is run an RE, or regen all, and it's going to update that area for us. So with that in mind, let's quickly go back and just open up that dialog box one more time. And look at all of the other things that we could add using fields. So let's kind of scroll back here because we're talking about managing our project, not picking an area of a polyline. Well, we've got date and times. So we've got plot dates and save dates. We've got the document, so the author of the document, the file name, and things like that. And then another subset here is we have the sheet sets. And this is a portion of the fields where we can start utilizing this. This is the part that meshes nicely with our sheet set manager. We're taking some of these different categories for the sheet number and things like that and producing them inside of our title blocks with the use of fields so they automatically update. So let's see this in action here. I'll come back over here. Let's get out of the text. Let's open up one of my drawings again. We'll get this open, and if I zoom down into the bottom corner, anything with a gray background here, that's using a field. What's this 03 right here? Well, if I came in here and rename and renumber, and maybe this is now this isn't going to mesh nicely, but 033, for example, and click OK. Regen, it auto-populates in here. So it's going to start to add all of that information. Let's put this back. RE, and we're back to it. A common question I get is, how do I get this 101? I have 101 drawings in this set, and I want to make sure that I'm using, or that I'm showing that exact number. And typically, maybe if you haven't used sheet sets or that, you might have used a couple different methods. Maybe you have a block, and that block has text in it that says 101. Well, that's not great because that block is only an instance that can control these 4 layouts. So I'd have to change that block and it would only change for these 4 layouts. I'd have to move to the next drawing and change those layouts to produce if this happened to be a 102, if it was an extra page got added or something like that. Now, another one I've seen is we can have drawing properties, DWG props. Now, this is, when we get into the custom properties here, this is something that you can pull into fields as well. And this is kind of a global control for a DWG. You can pull in some of this information. So if a piece of information like the total number of pages needs to be replicated 100 times in the drawing, we could set that in here and then pull it in through fields from these DWG props. Now again, this only covers this drawing. So we're running into problems again because we've got multiple drawings in our set, not just the one. So the best way, in my opinion, to do this is using a sheet set property. And if I right click on the sheet set and go to properties, we've got the project controls. Those are the standard ones, the preset ones. We can get into custom properties down here. Something like the total number of sheets. And I can set this to maybe 103. Click OK. RE, and that's 103. Not only that, but if I jump to my site layout plan, this is another field that's searching for that same custom sheet set property. So it's also going to show 103. I didn't even have to have the drawing open to change that field, which is awesome. Let's jump back here. That one was pre-created. Let's go one more step forward and just take a look. We can edit the custom properties in here. So instead of scrolling down and just editing what's already created, I can get right into my custom properties. I can add or delete custom properties within here. Total number of sheets. Now, another common thing that I see here is you see revisions and things like that. Maybe what I don't have is I'll add, we'll call this revision date. What's my value? I've got to have a default value, so maybe, or whatever the case. Now, what's nice about this, how many times has this happened? We missed the deadline by a couple hours. We got to put this project out on Monday instead of Friday. Can't have Friday's date on the revision. So we have to go back through the 103 pages. We have to go change every single page to show this the Monday's date instead of Friday's date. A meaningless edit that could take hours of time depending on how slow your drawings are and things like that. With custom sheet set properties, you do it once without even opening up all of the drawings, and then you can plot directly from the sheet set. You're done in minutes, and it becomes a lot less daunting of a task. So we click OK there, and I can see this. Now, where this would come into play is maybe this is today's date. Where are we, 22nd? Okay. And this would simply show up over here. Now, these automated attributes. I've got this in here and I've pressed this and I've double clicked, so I'm into edit. Why am I editing this field when instead I could right click and insert a field? Sorry, editing the attribute instead of inserting a field. We can come down to sheet sets. We can come down to custom sheet. Now that's not the one we like, but I want to point this out here for a minute. You can also have custom sheet properties, but we can also have custom sheet set properties, which is where we see that one that we created, revision date. Click OK. Click OK. And notice it's gray behind it now. So now that shows up in there. Now this has to be set up already in your title block for you to be able to take control over this. But it becomes a lot quicker if these types of revision setups are already set up. Now let's flip back to the PowerPoint. I think I might have skipped ahead here a little bit. Yeah, so automating the attributes, those are attributes within your title block. And just instead of looking at putting in a default value, right click, we can insert that field instead. Alrighty. Last but not least, this one's probably my favorite here. Apart from the fact that we can organize the files and publish all of our files all at once, the fact that we can set up these details and callouts. How many times has this happened where your project engineer goes, hey, we need to add another sheet at the start. We forgot to put, we've switched this up. We're not doing sheet-based legends. We're just going to do a general legend at the front. We're going to toss that in there. But now that's sheet 01 now. And now that's going to ripple through all of our other sheets. Well, all of those details and callouts that you've set up, you've grabbed the callouts and put them on the sheets and said, hey, reference sheet 101 for my details, or sheet 100 for my details. Well, now that sheet 100 is actually sheet 101. Not only do I have to go change the callout, I also have to go to the details sheet and add one to all of the sheets where that detail can be found. Sheet Set Manager is going to help you with this. So we talked about the uses. We'll talk about the drawing and sheet views, and then the configuration within there as well. So the uses is the ability to do exactly this. We've got a details page, and that details page is going to be sheet 100. We want to be able to put that call out in here and have it dynamically connected to the sheet number of our detail sheet. Just the same, we have views that we'd like to add, these details that we'd like to add, and we'd like some fields for the name, the scale, and the detail number. So we'll look at how to do that. The easiest way to do that is using these drawing and sheet views. So again, another AutoCAD functionality. Let's jump back here. Now, I'm going to go to model view for a minute here. I'll expand this out. This is like your file explorer a little bit, in the sense that it's going to give you all of these additional drawings that are in the same folder as your DST file, your sheet set file. So if you have all of these drawings in one place, you can see them all. You can navigate to them fairly easily, or we can add another location and open up the different folders that you need within your project to source all of these. Now what's nice is I can double click on this, and again, it directs me to it. This is quarterbacking my whole navigation of my project through these multiple files and that. Now, let's take a minute and go through what model views are. So let's come in here, and maybe we need to look at this, this little pond right here. I need a detail of this so that I can blow this up and show it on a details page or something like that. Well, under view, I can create new view. I can call this is my swim pond. We can take the current display right here, or we can go define a window. It'll zoom us out a little bit, and I can say I kind of want from here to here. Looks a little bit nicer. That's a little bit more brushed up. Enter to accept. We'll click OK. And now that's created a new view. Now, at surface level, this just means that if I'm panned over here somewhere else in my drawing and I need to go back and look at that pond, I've got that pond view right here under my unsaved views. Well, these are all of the other saved views. So I can go to my swim pond, and it pans and zooms me over there. Apologies for my voice. Now, what's even better is, say I have a layout right here and I need to start producing that. I've seen this a lot for maybe plan and profiles or whatever the case. Now that I'm in here, now that I'm in my layout, I could go to my Layouts tab and I can create viewports and rectangles and things like that, or I can insert views. So I can take my swim pond right here and it's going to show up, and I can drop this in. I can right click and pick the scale. So maybe I want 1/4 inch to 1. That might be a little bit small. 3/4 inch to 1, and I can dump that right there. That's going to give me a viewport with the layer controls that I saw when I was in model space, the orientation if I had a UCS when I was in model space, all at the right scale. And if I double click inside, it even locked the viewport for me. This is a really handy way to toss in viewports. And that's what inserting views are. And that's these views that you see in our sheet set manager. If I go Control S, now I kind of refresh this, I bumped it, and now I've got my swim pond. Well, let's open up my details page here. The sheet set manager takes this and it brings it to kind of an extra level here. Now, this is my details page that I've put in here as a placeholder so far in my project. I need to start populating it. I need to start adding all of those details in here. Now, this is just a blank drawing with a title block. I literally just started it from this DWT right here. So if I go look in my XREFs, I don't have any XREFs or anything like that. Well, from the model views, we could come over here and maybe take the cul-de-sac, for example. Right click and place on sheet. This is like inserting views plus XREFs. So not only are we trying to insert a view at a right scale or something like that, it's also XREFing this drawing. The drawing that I needed from this PBX41 with the layer states and everything that I needed for this view, and dropping it right into my layout. I don't know, that's pretty awesome to me. That got me excited when I learned that back then. Not only that, again, double click in here. I've got this at the right scale, and it's dropped in a block here for me that gives me my detail name, my detail scale, and those are all grayed out, or gray background, meaning those are fields. If those change, it's going to change for me. Now, this detail page has my detail of the cul-de-sac. Let's go to like the master plan or something like that. This is something that I want to show in here. In fact, not only that, I want to go right to my master plan that's in my sheets list right here. And I can see that cul-de-sac over here. I'd like to point that out so that we can refer back to that detail. Now that I've got a detail sheet with a detail in it, I can right click and place a callout block in here as well. Now that might not be the right size. I'd have to put this into model space. Double click in here. But when I drop this here, I'll just leave it here for now instead of troubleshooting right now. I've got a call out in here that reflects me back to my page 100. And this top portion, this is for the name of the call out, or the call out number. How do I set that? Well, I right click in here and we can rename and renumber this call out. I could set this to call out 001, for example. Regen, and I've got call out 001. Or maybe C01, for example. Now that I've got that call out name there, or my call out number, let's go back to my details page. It requires a regen when the drawing's open. It doesn't require that regen when the drawing's closed. And we've got that detail callout right there. This is so much easier to be able to do this as opposed to relying on a person to remember, hey, when we added that legend page, instead of it being page specific or sheet specific, I have to go back, I have to change all of my sheet numbers. I also have to change all of my details and callouts, and I have to remember where those details and callouts were placed. That it just leaves you open to so much more error if you don't do it this automated way. Flipping back into the PowerPoint, the only thing we need to do is create a block with a couple placeholder fields in it. So we can go to sheet set placeholder, and those would be the fields. So the view title and the view number would be A, the sheet number, and we can create all of this. In the sheet set, we're specifying where I got that callout bubble. It's nothing special. I got that from, if I go back to my sheets list, my sheet set properties, we've got our callouts block and our label block for the views. And if I hover over that, that's coming from right here. That same DWT file, it's referencing that and allowing us to go and pull blocks from there to insert it into our drawings. So I think I covered everything I was hoping to cover here. There's kind of, like I said, there's kind of 3 different stages of implementation when it comes to Sheet Set Manager. The very first thing, which is incredibly powerful all on its own, is the ability to come in here and publish and ETransmit an entire project from one space, as well as being able to navigate between our sheets and subset and get subsets of sheets for organization and setting all of that up. The second piece of this is the pardon me, is the ability to tie all of our sheet set properties to our title blocks ahead of time for the date that was saved, the sheet numbers, the project file number, the file name or the project name, revisions, and all of that, using those fields in our sheet, or in our title blocks rather, as automated attributes. We never have to go in and change those attributes anymore on a single sheet. We come into our Sheet Set Manager, Properties, and we change those attributes in here. If we don't have one we like, we're going to remember we can always come back here and edit the custom properties. And we can set all this up. And then lastly here, we're able to get all of these callouts using the model space or the model views, which are just these new views right here under the View tab. We can capture those, drop them on a details page, and once we have our details page, it's going to start to populate our sheet views that we can then start to place callout blocks that are being pulled from a template. Now, the last thing that I want to mention, because it's kind of cool,
we could go back to the title block here. Sorry, I think my microphone just died. And I probably want a table of all of my sheets. Right click on the Sheet Set Manager. Or the sheet set, the DST file. We've got Insert Sheet List Table. We've done all this stuff with fields already. It makes sense that we're able to do this. It already has access, the DST file already has access to all the sheets. It's simply tabulating them for you in a standard table style. And we now have a list, not only just a list, a dynamic list of every single sheet in our set with the sheet numbers that will update anytime these sheet numbers change in the DST file and everything like that. Now, the last thing that I'll say here as well is I've done all of this for one sheet set. The next question you're probably thinking is, how do you start to replicate this? I don't want to make my custom sheet set properties every single time in different title blocks, yada, yada, yada. When I create a new sheet set, I have the option to use an example sheet set. Pardon me. So we'll use that example sheet set, being the, call it the template DST file, or your saved best version of your DST file, and we'll go browse for it. So I've got my civil sample sheetset.dst, sheet set details. I'll just call this one, take the default name, place it in a default location, although you can pick where to save it. It's going to grab all of your subsets. It's going to grab all of your custom properties and everything. It'll give you a big summary right here. And then you don't have to start from square one every single time. You can start from that best version that you had on that last project without actually pulling in all of that stuff from the last project. And as long as you're using this in conjunction with that title block that's got those automated attributes, you're off to the races. That, I'll just click cancel out of there and flip back to the PowerPoint. So that is the end of my demo and presentation. I just wanted one more quick slide to show you guys some of the resources you have access to. There's lots of different places that you can find information on the Sheet Set Manager. I hope at the end of this you've seen that probably everyone should be using the Sheet Set Manager. It's just incredibly efficient and fairly quick to set up once you've done it once. But you can always email us at support@solidcad.ca. There's the great forums, the great Autodesk forums, as well as our SolidCAD YouTube channel and other YouTube videos in there as well. But maybe best of all here, and I'll put this in the chat, is this Sheets Happen. So this was created by a lady right when sheet sets came out, and it is a free PDF, and it is a complete guide on how to use sheet sets. It's an incredible PDF. It's definitely worth the read. I believe it's 40-some pages. But I'll dump this in the chat as I pass this over to Pat to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. So let's take a look here. There were a few that popped up as you were presenting. Andy mentioned a piece, I think you were talking, this was with regards to the property or reference a sheet set property. And he said, to clarify, if you use a field to reference a sheet set property that is empty, you will get a non-blank value, something like 3 question marks. If your goal is for that property to be blank, make the sheet set property %%u. Was there anything you wanted to add to that?
Oh, that's a good point. No, that's a tip to add in there. What we're referring to there is just the ability to put a symbol that is nothing using %%u. It leaves it as blank as opposed to what it would show up as with, if that were the field, it would show up as a number of dashes right here, saying that that field, that sheet set field, has not been populated. So %%u in that default value will eliminate these little dashes here, and it leaves it blank. No, that's a great point. Thank you.
Yeah, nice one, Andy. The next one comes from Steven, and he's asking, can you e-transmit in an earlier version of AutoCAD?
Yes, great question. Pardon me. I'm going to see my voice will hold out a little bit longer here. And that is absolutely, sorry, just something that I kind of passed over or breezed over. But as we go and e-transmit a file, we're grabbing all of that ETransmittal information, the XREFs and everything like that. A number of these aren't saved. let me just close that out. Actually, here, I'll just do it from one drawing. It's the same process, just a lot less information in one drawing. So you could also access this ETransmittal from Publish right here as well. I'll have to save those changes in order to pop that open. Oh, jeepers. Okay. But yes, you can save to an earlier version of AutoCAD, so a 2017 or sorry, a 2013 version of DWG format.
Okay, great. Next, just while this is loading, I'll answer another question here. Matt asked if the video will be shared for future use. The answer is yes. This has been recorded, so you will likely get a copy of this video, since if you registered for this webinar series, you'll get one directly from our marketing team. If not, the SolidCAD YouTube channel is where we have our whole host of webinars that we've run over several years at this point. So if you don't get a direct email from us, you will be able to access this directly from our SolidCAD YouTube channel.
Having some fun and kicking myself here. Yeah, no, great job there. Yeah. Are there any other questions as I'm kind of...
There is one more that has popped up while you're kind of fiddling around there. Brian asked, some sheets have more revisions than others. Can you have multiple revision fields? As an example, 2 drawings have 2 revisions and 1 drawing has a 3rd revision.
Mm-hmm. I guess another thing that in the interest of time, I wanted to kind of just breeze over, but you can absolutely do that. When you do that, instead of making that as a sheet set property, we're going to make that as a individual sheet property. So you have the ability to specify the revisions in here individually, actually, here for each of these sheets. So you just have to do it sheet level as opposed to sheet set level.
All right, how are we doing with getting this set up for that ETransmit? Do you want to answer one more question, or?
Yeah, let's answer one more question. It's really nothing that needs to be shown. The answer is yes. You can save this to another DWG. I'm just getting frustrated with myself right now.
All right. Mike asked, you said that page setup overrides are stored in the DWT DWG. What if it doesn't show up in the sheet set properties?
That would be because you're not pointing to the right DWT. So I've got this DWT right here. This is saved in the correct location. So I've got this DWT saved right there. So in my folder right here, what you have to do is make sure that the sheet set properties are pathing to that page setup override right here. C_sheet sets, blah, 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 blah. It's pointing to this sheet set .dwt or my .dwt template file. If it's pointing here, you'll be able to use that sheet set override. Any sheet setups, page setups, that's the word, that are in that template file. Too many words, too many sheet set words. These ones right here. So you just have to make sure that it's pathed. Yeah.
Great. Stephen said, great presentation, guys. Saw some cool stuff. Thank you, Stephen. It's all Colin. I just intro this stuff, so it's all Colin. Andy mentioned something maybe worth considering as well. He says JTB SSM Prop Editor is a real nice third-party program if you deal with some larger sheet sets and you need to change a bunch of properties / rename / transfer custom properties.
Awesome.
I'm not familiar with that one, but I don't know if you are, Colin.
No, I haven't looked into that yet. I'll have to put that on my list. Thank you very much, Andy.
Awesome. Any got a couple minutes still here. Any other questions in the chat room? I'm not seeing any right now, but I guess while we are, if anything else pops up, I should mention this was the third and final AutoCAD series that SolidCAD was running for the month of March. So if you did miss a couple of the previous sessions, we have them on our YouTube channel, as I had mentioned before. So please be sure to go ahead and check those out to see if they're of interest. We are planning on running some additional webinars coming up, I think in the May timeframe. We're waiting to get confirmation there. But the focus for those webinars that Colin and I will be involved with, at least, will be more on the Civil 3D side, as we're expecting a new version update and what is involved with those. So be sure to keep an eye on that. That will be advertised on our SolidCAD page. And if you sign up for our mailing list, I should say, you'll have access to first access to when those become available as well. So Colin, not seeing anything else. So I think we are good to go.
Alrighty. Thank you so much, everyone, for sticking in here until the very end. And I hope this kind of proved that AutoCAD, just because it says AutoCAD, it doesn't mean quite simple. And hopefully you guys got lots of use out of this webinar. So thank you very much for sticking in here, and have a great rest of your day.
Yep. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, folks. And we look forward to seeing you in a webinar coming up here soon. So take care and have a good one.